Be bold. Be heard. Welcome to Unmute Your Mic with your host, Jessica Bell. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Unmute Your Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. My name is Jessica Bell. I am your host from Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm so excited for the guest that I have today. I know her story is going to be really inspirational for some and is going to be perfect for the exact audience who will be listening. I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be on my podcast. If you could introduce yourself, let us know your name, where you're from, and just tell us a little bit about you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leticia, and I am originally from Bermuda, but currently living in England. I moved to England 8 years ago to pursue commercial insurance, but now I've recently walked away from my 9 to 5 to pursue full-time coaching, where I am a business mindset coach dedicated on helping Black women overcome their fears so that they can build their dream businesses.
That's beautiful. And so what got you into that field? Because that's a very specific field. So what made you choose that, or was it a calling?
I believe it was a calling. I originally started off as life coaching. So I started my business while on maternity leave. I had been searching for fulfillment. And I fell into coaching, actually. And as I grew my business initially, I was focused on life coaching, and my audience actually needed someone. A lot of my audience were, I want to start a business, but I'm scared. And my business evolved based on my tribe. And I was able to step into my zone of genius, be able to utilize my strengths to really provide a service that will be useful to the ones that were in front of me.
I think that is so important and it's so needed. And I think it's interesting that is your calling, and that's what you feel led to do. Because sometimes when we have difficult stories, you can either go one way or the other. So you can take what's happened to you and say, I'm just going to go in the corner and just, barely make it through life, or I can overcome it and then go out and help other people. And so I think that's super inspirational. So if we could dive a little bit into your story, your backstory, some of the things that you have gone through. I know we have a very specific topic we want to talk about. So if you could just kind of kick it off with telling us a little bit of your story and some of the things you've had to overcome.
My story is I have spent the last 14 years in commercial insurance as a Black woman. In that environment, I was definitely, I would say, a fly in the milk. I was around people who didn't necessarily respect me. And it was obvious from entering that environment that I would have to work very hard in order to see progression in that industry. I actually left Bermuda for a better opportunity for my career, and I ended up working in Lloyd's of London, which is the oldest insurance institution in the world. And my last job, I was a manager. I was second in charge in my department. And for 5 years, I was not given the opportunity. I could not make decisions. Everything that I was doing was second guessed. I was dealing with so many microaggressions, and, my manager used to give a disclaimer to me when we walk in meetings, like, used to say, oh, she used to work in law enforcement, so she's very rough, because I'm a person that does not take anyone's nonsense. And it got to a point, as I grew up, my mom spent 27 years in a role that she was really, really unhappy in. And I remember questioning her over and over. If you are this miserable, why don't you leave? And she always used to say to me, that's a sacrifice that we make as women for our children. You do what you have to do. And I remember saying, that will never be me. Fast forward 20 years, here I am, absolutely miserable because I'm not respected for the position that I have. And I always used to say to people, if I was a white man, I would be winning awards. I would be like the best young insurer under 40, because I know that what I bring to the table is tremendous. I know, like, not tooting my own horn, I know the value that I bring. And that's what really birthed my business. Stepping outside of that, we as Black women often are put into subservient roles. Even though I was a manager, I was not respected. I had white men cussing me out in emails and that being validated by my managers. But the minute I spoke up, ooh, you're upset. Ooh, you're aggressive. But it was expected that I just roll with the punches. As a Black woman, we are expected to be strong and powerful. We're not allowed moments of weakness. We do not get an opportunity to ever express ourselves in a way that we're heard and understood. And I think it's powerful to have these conversations because, working in Lloyd's of London, there was only one other Black woman on my floor. And we used to spend time just talking because it's like, I see you, girl. She saw me. And we had that opportunity to just take down that mask and be ourselves, even if it was for 2 minutes. And I think so many of us go through life where we're wearing this mask, we're hiding behind the expectations of others because we don't want to stand out. We don't want to be pushed back in a box. So we just comply. And part of, I believe, my purpose is to show other Black women that we don't have to comply. My mother spent 27 years sacrificing so that my generation could stand in their own power and stand up for themselves. So we need to get our minds right. We need to start believing in ourselves so that we can take the power that we have been robbed of by society, by our communities, even sometimes by family, because, we're always too much for somebody.
You brought up so many really good points and topics that I think really need to be talked about. One, about when you mentioned being in the workforce and you mentioned having to do almost like 10 times as much as everybody else and still not getting that respect that you deserve. And I think that is such a common thing, especially as a Black woman. As soon as you speak up, you're aggressive, you're ghetto, you have an attitude problem, but then somebody of another counterpart can go off, have a fit, and everyone's just like, oh, they understand why. And so I know how difficult that is, having being somebody myself who worked in an environment where I was the only Black person. And it was like, I had to be extra professional. And, what does that do what do you think that does to women's confidence or the way they navigate themselves when they're constantly having to be less than what they feel like they could be?
It destroys our confidence. It robs us of our authenticity. And it has us questioning ourselves, right? If someone else's narrative of us is played over and over again, almost on a loudspeaker, that we belong in a box, that becomes our narrative. And that is what I have a problem with. We don't need to be in anyone's box. And, I've always been one that I'm a nonconformist. If you're telling me to do something, I need to know why. And if you can't give me the explanation, I'm doing what I like. And I love that you have the dreads. Before I walked away from my 14-year career, I had dreadlocks down to my knees. And the reason why I had them for so long is because I remember someone telling me, you're not going to get a job with those things in your head. So it became my story. I'm going to walk into this boardroom with my locks, and I wouldn't groom them regularly. I want you to see my naturalness, because it doesn't impact what I bring to the table. It may distract you, but I'm not distracted.
Girl, you are preaching right now. That is so good, because so often we do let how other people see us, the boxes that they put us in, define us and define who we think we can be, or, make it seem like, we have to have the straight hair. We have to look a certain way. We have to conform to certain beauty standards in order to be taken seriously. And so I love that you said, like, you might be distracted, but I still know what I'm walking in here with. I still know what I'm capable of. And I think there are so many women who need to hear that. And like you said, the conversation needs to be had, because it is not our job to make other people feel comfortable with us because we don't look like or fit into their standards. And so you mentioned also about your mom, seeing your mom working and not being happy. And so when you found yourself in that same position, what was kind of like that final straw where you were like, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore?
I was in a meeting with, doesn't matter. I was in a meeting and there was a offshore provider and my boss on this meeting. And the offshore provider, older white English man, shouting, cursing at me as soon as I made a comment. Here we go again with your arrogance, and being called out of my name. And I remember holding back tears, not because I was upset, because I really wanted to get ghetto on this man, okay? And I held my composure, like you said, being as professional as you can be, but I put him in his place quite quickly. I said, if you don't talk to your wife like that, you're not going to talk to me like that. So can we get back to the point at hand? And I got off the phone and my manager called me and said, you were the cause of that flare up on that meeting. And I said to myself, is this man serious? I didn't curse. I didn't raise my voice. I very quickly and calmly told him, I'm not accepting it. And I'm the reason. And that was, for me, the final straw. After years of having to prove myself, of years putting myself at a deficit with my mental health, trying to build someone else's dreams, I'm going to put that energy into myself.
And that's what I was going to ask about too, was the mental health aspect of that. Because I feel like that would, and it does cause in a lot of people anxiety and depression. And you just feel like you're in like this constant race that you'll never be able to win, and you're always behind. And so I know that that's a big thing too. What do you think are some things that you do or that you did to really build up your mental health, your confidence, to not fall victim to, just like throwing in the towel or quitting at life?
As I said before, I am a nonconformist. So I think I'm almost motivated I'm fueled in these environments, because they say if a rat is caught in the corner, they will attack. And I had that mentality. I've always been one that if you think the worst of me, I'm going to show you the complete opposite. I'm going to blow your mind. And that kind of competition all the time, it drains your soul. I wasn't only in competition. It was almost like I was in competition with myself all the time. And I didn't want that. For me, it was affirmations, a lot of self-talk. Like, you get to a place where you're in the bathroom crying because you're so frustrated. And I'm telling you, if anybody else was in their stalls, they'd have been like, what's going on? Because I'll be like, not today, girls. I'm not going to get the best of you today. So, just having the awareness, I think, was key of how it was impacting me. And then making the decision that I'm not going to let this conquer me. I've always been in the understanding that everything that happens in life is a stepping stone for the next thing. So another thing that I used to do is always ask, what is the lesson here? What do I need to learn to edify myself? I can't control the outside, but I can control me. And what can I take out of this that's going to make me even better?
And I think, like you said, knowing that there really is a lesson in everything. And when we go through things, I truly believe that it's not just by happenstance or coincidence that we go through certain things, and it builds us up, and it allows us to be able to, speak to other people, to come out stronger on the other side. And so while you were going through this kind of stuff in your work life, how was it affecting your personal life? And what difference do you see now that you are, free and you're building your own dream?
It had such a negative effect on my home life. I mean, last year in particular, everyone's home. I actually homeschool my children, so we are together all the time. And my husband, I went back to work mid-year last year from maternity leave. And my husband was within the first week. Your stress is coming downstairs with you. I can't deal with it. So me and him are bickering because I'm stressed out. The children are impacted because I'm stressed out. And that's not a sacrifice I was wanting to make. If I'm going to make sacrifices, they need to be for the betterment of myself and my family. And it was putting a strain on my household. I had a lot of responsibility. And I realized it just was not worth it.
You're right, because even in our jobs, or when you're working for somebody else, they will quickly replace you. If something happens to you, they rest in peace, and then your desk is filled the next day, because it's a business and they just have to keep it moving. And so it is not worth risking your family, your marriage, your children, your mental health, because somebody else needs you to be this for their business. I think that's really important. And I think I'm running into more people recently who are getting into that mindset, who are saying, hey, like, if I'm going to spend 45 hours a week, or sometimes 50 or 60, depending on the level of job that you have, building somebody else's dream, why not take that time and put it into myself and see what I can become and what I can do? And so when you left your job and you started doing that and pouring into yourself, what were some of the changes you saw, and how quickly were you able to start your business and actually get momentum?
I started my business while on maternity leave. And I just want to quickly drop this in here. 6 hours after giving birth, I received an email from work asking business questions, and that really prompted me to start my business. So I was spending time before going back. Out here we have up to 12 months maternity leave, so I spent that time building my business. So that's when I was focused on the life coaching. And so when I resigned, if I'm honest, I had a 3-month notice period. I really spent that time amping up my business, redoing market research, because in that moment I knew I was going to pivot into the business coaching, because I was even more passionate about Black women taking control. Like, we don't need to be putting up with this. We do not need to be putting up with this. And a lot of us are successful in the areas and the industries that we're working in. We could be successful in our own rights without making someone else money, So I spent the time, my notice period, really building up my business, and I launched my business coaching program the day I resigned, and I was able to sell that out in 24 hours. So it's just been busy since then.
Wow. And that's so amazing. And like you said, putting that time into it and you created an entire business in that time. In that same amount of time, you could have been, responding to them, doing what they needed you to do. And just to go back to the fact that you said you had just given birth and you were getting emails about work, at that moment, I could see where the light bulb would be like, absolutely not. Like, this is not okay. Like, I am holding a newborn. I'm not doing a work email. But again, it goes back to the fact that it is a business. And it's not, if you're not seen as a person, you're just seen as a workhorse to get something completed, then they're like, it doesn't matter what you're going through because business is first. And I think when we start taking back that and taking back our time, and being able to be like, my time is mine, because we truly only get one life. We only get one life. And so we have to live that to the fullest. And at the end of it, you don't want to say that you just built all these other people's dreams and everything that was inside of you kind of just withered away over time. And so I wanted to know if you could give, some advice to people who are listening, especially Black women. Maybe they haven't started their own business yet, but they're working in, the 9-to-5 field, and they're feeling like you felt, like underappreciated, like they can't speak up. What is some advice or some tips you could give them until they make that pivot?
I think it's important to set boundaries. And I think a lot of us avoid setting boundaries because we don't believe that we can within the business environment. So for instance, I mentioned the email that I received 6 hours after giving birth. Like, I told someone that and they were like, well, I wouldn't be looking at my work email. I wasn't looking at my work email. It came into my personal email and I didn't answer it, but it was enough to know that they don't respect my boundaries. And boundaries are always about you, not the other person. It's not about, okay, if you do this, this is how I'm going to respond. It's about what you are willing to take and what you are willing to take action with. So I think it really starts with being clear on your boundaries, being clear on what you are truly willing to take, and having an exit plan should those boundaries be breached, and being willing to commit to that. I think oftentimes we don't commit enough to our own goals and desires. And I think it's because sometimes we don't believe that we deserve what we desire. So also examining what we believe we deserve is important. Getting clear about that. And if there's something that is holding us back from getting what we believe that we desire, that's what we need to work on.
I think that is really good. And it brought up another question too for me, is that how do you overcome the fear? A lot of us don't want to speak up in work positions because it's a really good job, or I'm making a lot of money, or it's a hard job. It's hard to get a job right now. So I kind of just feel like I should take what is happening to me. How do you kind of overcome that fear to realize that, you can't just take stuff, that it's not even healthy for you to do that?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you brought up a lot of limiting beliefs there. A lot of times we create thoughts and narratives that fuel the fear that we have, right? And it's important. A lot of times our fear is irrational because we default to the worst case scenario. We do not have a clear vision, or we don't have the knowledge of what is going to happen. So why is it that we always default to something negative, right? So I think it starts with the narratives that we're holding. We don't know what's going to happen if we speak up for ourselves. But if we're going to hold a narrative, we need to hold a narrative that's going to serve us. Believing that there are no jobs out there is going to keep you stuck. Believing that you are going to be punished, that's going to keep you stuck. So I like to encourage women, if you're going to come up with a future expectation, let it be a positive one. Let it be something that will fuel you to take action. Because at the end of the day, until you take action, you will never know the outcome. And sitting there wallowing in the worst case scenario is not going to help you.
I absolutely love that. And that's what I was hoping you would say, because I think it is so important that even how we talk to ourselves is really one of the most important things, because our mind does often just immediately go to the negative instead of saying, but there are plenty of jobs, or maybe I'll just go start my own business, or there's something better. This is not the only thing I can get. I don't have to tolerate disrespect, no matter what the paycheck looks like, because I truly believe that there is no amount of money that comes with self-dignity and pride and having respect for yourself. If you end up selling that for money, I think it is going to be a very rough road. Because we all know of wealthy people who have lived very tragic and sad lives. And the money didn't equal the happiness, the joy, the contentment. And so I also wanted you to take a couple of minutes to speak to the woman who has already pivoted. So she's already started her own business and she's out of the workforce, and maybe she just needs some encouragement to keep going. What would you say to her?
It starts with a decision. It starts with a decision to make it happen no matter what. I'm a mother. I don't know if you are a mother, but one thing that mothers are notorious for is making things happen. And I think you should look at your business as if it's your baby and be willing to get down and dirty and do whatever it takes to see the success that you desire. And the reason why you have that desire is because you have everything that you need to make it happen for yourself. So decide today that you will settle for nothing less. And be willing to learn as you move along, because everything will shape you and mold you into the future self that sees the success that you desire.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It has really been a joy talking to you. I want to keep talking because it's so good. And I think it's such an important conversation. I think there needs to be more of these conversations of women really feeling empowered, and not just empowered in like the trendy way that it's sometimes used, but truthfully, like from the inside out, knowing who you are and knowing what you deserve and taking that with you in every single environment, and not feeling bad, not feeling like you have to cower down or be afraid or duck and die. Like I think so many of us are almost like tiptoeing through life. And so I think you brought up a really great point that we have to keep going and keep moving and making sure that we encourage others along the way. And so that's why I think your story is so inspirational. And I'm so glad that I met you. I would love to stay connected with you because I know you're going to continue doing amazing things.
Thank you. Can I just leave your listeners with one quote? And this is my favorite quote. It's my quote, but it's walk as if every step you take is about to make an avalanche, because you are here to change the world.
I love that. That's the perfect ending. So I'm not going to say anything else. I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. As always, you can find us at unmuteyourmic.org. We are also on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and anywhere else that you would find a podcast. Please stay connected with our guest. I'm going to put all of her information down below. Read her bio and just learn more about her. Follow her on her social media platforms. Thank you again for being on my show. It has been a true honor and blessing.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everybody, again. Don't forget to be bold, be heard, and unmute your mic.
Thank you for tuning in to Unmute Your Mic. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our community.